Alrighty, hello, everybody. We are live. I will go ahead and give everyone just a couple of minutes to hop on before we get started. When you join, let me know that you can hear me. If you can hear me, let me know. Put a yes in the chat that you can hear me, and we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, so we are going to go ahead and get this conversation started. I'm super excited to be here with you all today. This is my second first time home buyer live, and I feel like this conversation is so important. So for those that do not know me, my name is Erica McCray with Team McCray Realty and Investments by way of my brokerage, which is Legacy South Real Estate Group. And I'm excited to bring this conversation to you today. So what are we talking about today? Let's start there. I want to break this myth that you have to have 20K in the bank to do what you need to do to get into a home. That is not always the case, and we are going to have that conversation. But I did not come on this journey alone today. I have two amazing people, so I am going to go ahead and bring them on. So I have Mr. James Green with Nexa Mortgage, as well as Jarek Maddox. He is my mentor for mortgages. So I'm super excited to have this conversation. So I want to pass it over to James first. If you can just take a minute just to introduce yourself, and then we'll pass it over to Jarek as well.
Hey, yes. Can everyone hear me?
We can hear you.
Perfect. Yes, my name is James Green. I'm with Nexa Mortgage. I do various types of loans, whether it's down payment assistance all the way up to SBA. But we'll get into one of the things we're talking about. The topic of discussion today about, breaking the myth of down payment. So I'm gonna pass it over to Derek and let you guys get introduced, and then we'll jump into it.
Awesome.
Hey everyone, can y'all hear me?
We can hear you. We got you.
All right, good. My name is Jarek Maddox. I am CEO, owner of Your Mortgage Mentor. I am here to help buyers with getting from the start of the process, wherever you are, all the way to helping you get keys to your new home. So I am here to help, guide, uh, prod, hold accountable, push, whatever I got to do to help you get your keys so that you can make your goals happen.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for being here today. And y'all see why I have both of them on speed dial. We are the dream team. You have the realtor that's going to go to bat for you. You have the lender that is working behind the scenes to make sure that you get to the closing table. And for those that need some assistance getting into the process, you have Jarek, who's going to be there from day one up until you get to the closing table to make sure that you have everything in place. So again, thank you guys so much for being here. So I'll start with James. Let's start here. This is the big one. So people always come to me and say, Eric, I want to buy a house, but I don't have a down payment. So let's just talk about this just straight. My first question for you: is it really possible to buy a home with little to no money down? So yes or no, and then break that process down for us.
So yes, it is very possible to get into a home with little money out of your pocket. The bare minimum, most of the times that I do require, is going to be your earnest money. For
Okay.
those of you who do not know what earnest money is, I'm going to let Erica explain that really quick so that you can have that segue into that. But most of the times, the only thing we really need is the earnest money,
Okay.
your money for appraisal, and money for home inspection. If we can, fit you into the right program. But for those of you who do not know what earnest money is, I would like for Erica to
Not
explain
him
that.
throwing it over to me. Not him throwing it over to me. Okay, okay. So your earnest money, and again, it's not. I'll give you the typical. Most people will do like 1% down of the purchase price, which is basically you stating, "Hey, I got skin in the game. I'm ready to move forward once we sign a contract." Typically, that money is transitioned over to the closing attorney via wiring within 3 days of us being up under contract. Like I said, most people do 1%, but it doesn't have to be 1%. If you say, "Hey, I can only do this," then that's what I'm putting in the contract as relates to that earnest money. And then, James, if I'm not mistaken, this comes off of the purchase price. So it's not money that you're having to just pay on top of the purchase price, but it's pretty much you just letting them know, "Hey, I want this. I'm giving you this because I want to move forward and I'm serious in purchasing your home."
Yes. So one thing, yes, it does not go on top of the purchase price. It actually helps you because we subtract it from your down payment itself, or your closing costs, depending on what type of product you're in.
So one of the things that James mentioned, yes, you can get into a home with no down payment, but you're going to need that earnest money, which is not something that you have to pay on top of the purchase price. And he also talked about your appraisal and your inspection. Appraisal and inspection are two totally different things. When they are going out to do the appraisal, they have to appraise the property to make sure that it actually values at what you're getting ready to pay for that property. So if the seller is wanting $300,000, but then the appraiser goes out and only values at 270K, we have to then have a conversation because the bank is not going to lend you more money than the property is valued at. So that's one part. That's the appraisal. The other thing is an inspection. I don't care if it is a brand new construction home. I'm going to encourage you to get an inspection. They could have done something wrong. The worst thing that you can do is get into a home that has not been inspected, and now you have all of this money that you have to pay out because you didn't do your due diligence. I will never, I am, listen, if you want to do something without an inspection, I'm not that realtor. I want you to know what's going on. I'm currently under contract and we have it wasn't too bad as far as the inspection, but we still had 12 items on that inspection that needed to be taken care of. So that's what I do as a realtor. Once you pay for the inspection, once we get the report, then I turn around and I submit an amendment to address concerns with the property so that we can get in writing that the seller is going to fix those things before we go to the closing table. So those are the three things that you would need. But let me tell you this now, I'm under contract right now. We're closing. Me and James are closing on Monday. But the client that we had before that, they ended up paying the earnest money, the appraisal, and the inspection, but ended up getting their money back for the earnest money in a check at closing. So, James, how did we get there? How did you get that client to get actually a check back at closing? Can we talk about that a little bit?
All right. So it was an FHA program. That program that we're talking about is you have to have a minimum of about a 620 credit score. And if you have a 620 credit score, then it gives us the options of doing 3% down, 3.5% down payment assistance, or 5% down payment assistance. Depending on your debt to income ratio is going to determine which program we put you in. Now, the programs comes two ways. The program can be repayable, which would be considered a second lien and it adds on to the monthly payment, or it can be forgivable, which means you got to stay in the house for a little bit of time and then it'll fall off the mortgage automatically. So this person, they got into the 5% down payment assistance program, and then when I know that the person is going to use down payment assistance, I do a calculation to let the realtor know, hey, this is what we need from the seller to make this deal work. At this point, I think we needed 5%. Was that right, Erica? Did we get
Yeah,
4 or 5?
we ended up getting the seller to contribute about $12,000 in closing costs.
Yes. So that was about 4.5%
Hmm.
on that deal. So it was enough for me to go in and pretty much move the numbers around in the borrower's favor. So that means that the lender is putting you in a down payment assistance program for about 5%. The seller is giving you another 4.5%. So that's 9.5% that's going towards your down payment and closing costs. Typical deals are usually about 8% total because you're calculating things in the closing costs, such as prepayment for your insurance. You're calculating escrow that need to be collected for taxes and insurance, attorney fees, origination fees, all the things that breaks down on the list, whether it's tax transfer fees, all that is included into your actual closing costs. So what I do is I try to account for based off of where you're buying, based off of what I'm estimating what your taxes will be, estimating what your insurance will be, and I'll give you a pretty much inflated number to say, hey, this is what your typical closing costs would be without the seller help. So then we go and ask the seller for that amount, right? So that way we're trying to get that amount, and then I also say maybe add a little bit more to buy down the interest rate. So a lot of times when I'm asking realtors to about what we need to negotiate for the closing costs concessions from the seller is actually to help the buyer to be able to not only cover all their closing costs, but actually help them to buy down their interest rate as well. In
Love
this
it.
case, the client had amazing credit score, so the interest rate fitted where it needed to be at for them to feel comfortable for their monthly payment. So when we figured out we could spend a little bit of money on the interest rate itself, we used the remaining money of the closing costs from the seller to go ahead and pay the closing costs off. And what the remainder was from the 5% that we gave and the 4.5% the seller gave, we gave them the difference minus what we paid for the actual interest rate. So they were able to legitimately get the money that they put up front to get into the home back at the end at closing.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And James is absolutely right. When I get a pre-approval from James, James is telling me, hey, this is roughly what you need to get at least from the seller. So I go into it. I look at it twofold. You have right now, we have some homes that's been on the market for a very, very long time, and then you have some that have been on the market for a few days. So I already prep my buyer to say, hey, this home, it just went on the market. If you really love this home, we're going to have to put in an offer right away. But I call the seller's agent and I say, hey, do you have any offers on this property? Because I already know if they do have some offers, they may or may not take ours if we have to ask for a lot of money in seller concessions, which is closing costs. But on the other hand, if it's a property that's been on the market for 60, 70, 80 days, and I know for a fact that this person wants to move this home, I'm also calling and saying, hey, do you have any offers on this property? The minute they say no, I'm like, okay, great. Now, this is what I am going, before I even put in this offer, I need you to go and ask your seller, are they going to accept this offer? And I've had that happen twice, and I was able to get my client into that contract knowing without a shadow of a doubt that they were going to go ahead and proceed in signing the contract with my need of whatever that is, $10,000, $12,000, because they wanted to move the property. So there's a lot of different things. And I tell people, as much as I would love to put you in the first home that you see, it all depends on how many people have interest in that property and what are those different things. So we ended up putting in for one property, but we didn't get it because the person, we offered a little bit more money, but they didn't have to pay the other person closing costs. So there's all types of different things that come with us going up trying to go up under contract for a property. So thank you so much for that, James. I want to slide over to Jarek and talk a little bit about you and your journey. So, my first question to you is what is a mortgage coach? What is a mortgage mentor? Some people do not know what that is. So, break that down for us and help us to understand how you come into the picture.
Definitely, I appreciate that. So it's
Yeah.
something that I actually came up with, and James does this as well. As a loan officer, help people, give them some advice, give them some input on what to do, to improve their situation if he can't improve them. And I did that as a loan officer, but I decided to take it a step further because what I saw was, even though I would give people a plan, sometimes, because it was amounts that were higher than what they were prepared to pay to get their credit scores up, they begin to get a little discouraged about, well, I don't know if I can do this. And so what I realized is a lot of people needed a coach. They needed a mentor to be able to help answer questions that they may have, help them to answer, figure out hurdles that they may come across when they're trying to improve their scores or save money or understand, how to fit this mortgage payment into their budget, or even just documents that they may have. So they had these questions, and they just didn't feel like they had the best resource, or they didn't want to bother the loan officer with these additional questions because they knew the loan officer wasn't able to approve them. So they just kind of get discouraged about where they are. So I decided that, I wanted to dedicate my time, energy to being a mentor, being a coach to those people. So that way, I can answer questions that you may have. I can guide you. We can together figure out any, obstacles that may come up beforehand, or if they come up while we're working through the process, we can brainstorm together and figure out a strategy for you. Also, one of the things I found is, a lot of my clients, they really appreciate the accountability that I offer with your mortgage mentor when they're going through hurdles, or they feel like, this is a little bit, I didn't think it was going to be like this. And I help them to see, like, you're buying a house, you're buying the biggest asset that you'll probably own in your lifetime. And it's not always promised to be a cakewalk. But with the right help, the right guidance, we can get you there. We can break it down, break it into pieces. Separate the hard from the easy, and tackle the easy first, and then maybe once we get some momentum, we can address the hard. So those things mattered for a client that was, because if you had some issues with your credit initially, normally something happened along your journey. Something happened that caused some things to be late, or some collections, or whatever the case may be. And so sometimes I felt like people needed the additional help, the resource, the motivation to be able to figure out a solution for those obstacles that happened prior. And just know, hey, it's okay, it happens, but we can get right back on track, and we can get you closed. We can figure out a solution. The one thing I learned in my time as a loan officer is that, if you have income, um, you can buy a house. Sometimes you may need a cosigner, and that's a conversation that we have. And that is a realistic conversation. It's a conversation that I'm able to break down to where we understand why we need a cosigner, and the cosigner understands why they need to be a cosigner, and they understand that it's not a long-term commitment. We can figure out a plan of action now to add a cosigner, and later on how to get them off. If we do it now, it doesn't make it seem like it's a forever situation. So there's answers out there. By the grace of God, I have a lot of those answers because of the time that I put into the industry. And I developed this business and this opportunity to be able to provide answers to people that need help. That's what your mortgage mentor is.
I love it. And I appreciate Jared so much because he was a mortgage lender. So he knows exactly what James is going to go through when it comes to getting you that pre-approval. So he has the expertise and he will hold you accountable. I also love the fact that when I send my people over to Jared, I know exactly where they are in the process. I don't have to reach out to Jared because he's CCing me on the emails. He's letting me know if, he's had a conversation with someone, and he will hold you accountable. If If you put in the work, I can guarantee you that Jarek is going to get you where you need to go. I know he may have had the conversation today, but I have someone that I feel like is right on the cusp. Like they didn't even realize they were so close to being able to do it, but you just need someone that's going to be able to look at your credit profile, see where you are, and help you to get there within that 30 to 60 days. So, and he's super affordable. So anybody on here, if you need some assistance, I challenge you to reach out to me so that I can put you in contact with Jared. He has a free consultation for 20 minutes. You'll walk through everything. A lot of times I'll do the consultation first, get all of the information from you, and then I send it over to Jared, and then I introduce you to Jared. But he will help you from the time you guys start up until you get to that closing table. One fee, very inexpensive. I told him, I said, "Wow, this is definitely a ministry." So thank you so much, Jarek. I want to go back to James. So James, walk us through what, before we do that, we did have a question. So one question is land included in the purchase price? If you are purchasing a home on land, yes, that land within that home is included in your purchase price. So it's not separate unless you're, going and doing some vacant land or some unimproved land that doesn't have a home on it. But yes, the land is included in the purchase price. Um, Let me see if there's anything else. Do you have any programs for those preparing for home ownership? For example, I won't be able to purchase for another year, but would love to prepare for the moment. So I recommend one, we have a conversation so I can kind of see where you are. Why is it a year for you to purchase a home? And then we'll have that conversation. I can put you with Jarek at any point. He will help you from now until, next year, getting you to that point. But I want to have a conversation with you on why is it a year. And I say that because the person that I just closed said the same thing. I went to lunch with her and she was like, "Oh no, maybe next year." And I'm like, "Girl," I started having conversations with her about all of this stuff. And I'm like, "No, I think you can get pre-approved right now." And with less than a week, James had her pre-approved. So I want to have that conversation on why. It may just be a personal thing, but if it's focused on, credit and all of that stuff, let's have the conversation. Have the conversation first, see where you are, and then we can put you in contact with Jared. So great questions. Okay, so James, walk us through the actual loan programs that allow low or no down payment. So FHA, USDA, VA, conventional loans. Please tell us, how do they take advantage of that?
Okay. Let's start with the most convenient one. It would be VA. There's no down payment required. The beautiful thing about VA, as long as you've been a veteran, as long as you served in the military a allowed amount of time, the VA will let you know when you qualify. It is specific dates based off of when you are being available to receive those benefits. The coolest thing about VA compared to the other ones, VA doesn't have mortgage insurance with it,
Mm-hmm.
and you cannot originate a VA loan more than 1% complete total. So VA is definitely one of the loans where is the most convenient. If you're a veteran, they make it super smooth, and then you can
Break
get
down
through it.
that 1% for us, James. What
So
did you mean by that?
what that means is all the origination, processing, or other fees, they
Mm-hmm.
do not allow it to go past 1% threshold unless the seller has seller concessions. So that
Okay.
means whatever your raw rate on the VA loan, 9 out of 10 times, you're going to have to be able to um, move it. You have to have seller concessions to help you lower it because there's a certain amount of money that the lender cannot charge you for a VA loan.
So there's no down payment for a VA loan. They can't charge any fees higher than 1%. And if I'm not mistaken, I can ask the seller to give up to 4% in closing costs. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
All right.
So
Next
all of
one.
my veterans out there, we need to start having a conversation on where you are so that you can take advantage of this. Go ahead, James.
Next one, USDA. USDA is the next. I think a lot of people do not use USDA enough.
Mm-hmm.
The reason USDA is super sleek, it's the only loan that when you appraise higher, you can actually roll the closing costs into the actual loan. So you can, if it appraises higher, you can roll the closing costs in it. So it's 0% down. It also runs off of FHA or HUD underwriting. So you would want to come in roughly around about a 620 to get a good USDA loan. They do allow more, but VA also, USDA also lets every person who is working in the household contribute to the income. Well, there's a 17-year-old who has a grocery bagging job. I'm aging myself. I don't even know if they do that anymore. But just prime example, if you have somebody else who can help qualify for income, USDA actually allows you to do that. But USDA do have similar interest rates to FHA and VA, but one of the two things that breaks it away is one, you can roll the actual closing costs if the appraisal is high. Two, you can actually use multiple people to qualify on the loan, and they take that all the way into consideration. USDA is normal for rural areas, so it is limited to where you can actually use the USDA loan. So that means that before you're thinking about using it, you have an address in mind. You will reach out to myself and say, this address I'm thinking about, I'll put it into our USDA eligibility website. And if it is approved, then we can go moving forward. So USDA does have a lot of wins, but the wins come at the expense of you might be in a rural area, just so you know.
Let me ask you this, James. So, are you saying, because I want to make sure that it's clear for our viewers. So, if you are in that rural area and the home qualifies, say for instance, they have the home listed at 200,000, but it appraises at 230,000. Are you saying that that other 30,000 can be used towards whatever closing costs are
Absolutely.
in?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay. And then the other thing is, so it wouldn't be the full 30K. It would just be whatever the closing cost is.
Yes.
Okay. And then the other thing is, I know I heard you say that we can use everybody's income in the home, whoever has a job, but are there restrictions? Like, what's that limit for you to be able to qualify for a USDA loan?
So USDA loan for the primary person is going to qualify over the 2 year of employment rule, right? But on your secondary and income people, you're going to qualify over a 12-month rule.
Okay.
So if you so it's going to be different variations based off of primary versus secondary income.
Gotcha. Okay, awesome. And then we have a question. How do you apply grants for first time home buyers? So I'm assuming we're talking about, I know some of the down payment assistance programs, like you mentioned, you do have to pay back, but some of them do come as a grant where you just have to stay in the home for a certain amount of time and then it's forgiven. So can you walk through that for them? How do you apply for grants for a first time home buyer?
So it's through the banks. People are familiar. You know, the big name is Georgia Dream, right? Um, if you qualify for it, great. However, you need a 640 credit score, and they're going to pretty much tell you where you live, right? With ours, you can legitimately. It's not just for first-time home buyers. It's for second-time home buyers. It's not just for people who make a little bit of income. It's for everybody, right? So the grant can
Mm-hmm.
be applied to people who are making 200, $300,000 a year. It's just that it has no income restriction, but it has to
Okay.
be your primary home and you have no location restriction. And the difference between um, a lot of other grants and this one is this down payment assistance actually allows you to get a duplex with it through FHA. So not only are you able to get 3 to 5% on the FHA down payment assistance, you're actually able to get your first rental property on the other side and use it as a duplex as well to get it into a duplex. So
Yeah.
a lot of times I've had more people this year couple that 5% down payment assistance with getting a duplex. So now you're actually getting a home for yourself and also a rental property on the other side to help you pay for that mortgage. And then conventional has a first time home buyer grant. So you have to qualify for 3% down. That's typically your first time home buyers. And then they give a grant. And then that grant is actually forgivable after about 6 months. So it doesn't take as long with this program, but you do have to qualify with conventional and you have to qualify for the grant itself. And then you put that all together. So between VA, USDA, FHA down payment assistance, whether it's repayable grant or conventional grant. Those are the four major ways that, or four loan types that you can actually get in with no money down. You have to qualify. This is the biggest things about these loans. If you're trying to qualify for these loans, you must either be W 2 and you've been W 2 for 2 years, or you have to be able to have filed your taxes for the last 2 years if you are 1099, or if you've had your business open for more than 5 years and you're qualifying as one business entity, you can have 1 year of tax returns. So this is how it's structured. You must be able to prove you have paid taxes to be
Mhm.
able to qualify for one of these programs. That's how they make sure that you paying Uncle Sam first and we give you some money later.
Got it. Okay, thank you so much for breaking that down. We did have a question about using the grant as your down payment only. So the down payment assistance programs will take care of your down payment, but like we mentioned earlier, you're still going to need the money for earnest money as well as your appraisal and your inspection. Now, I can go to bat to try to get as much as I can from the seller for the closing costs, but we still have to go down that path. They can say yes, we'll pay all of the closing costs, or they'll say, hey, we'll pay a portion. Sometimes they say, hey, no, our margins are tight, we can't pay anything. So all of that goes into us finding a home, making sure that we get what you need. Because if I know, if James tells me, hey, this person is going to need $10,000 in seller concessions, I'm going to tell you, hey, I spoke with the seller's agent. They got three people that have put in an offer. I'm going to put it in as such. They may accept it, they may not. So it just really depends. But yeah, we will definitely use that down payment assistance so that you don't have to take care of that. But keep in mind that there's other things that we will have to take care of during that process. So good question. Okay, we'll have Jared come back on in just a moment. So James, I'll give you another question. So I think we kind of talked about the down payment assistance programs. So a lot of our viewers are veterans, married to veterans. So let's talk a little bit about the. You know what? We've already talked about this as far as the benefits for the VA loan and all of that. 0% down, um, no mortgage insurance and all of that. So I'll skip that one. Um, let's go to another one since Jarek is back. I'll pass it over to you, Jarek. So where do you fit in this process, Jarek? Do you come on when someone is just considering? Do you come before James, after James? Walk our people through where you come in to help them.
I had cut out, Erica.
No
What?
worries. I'll say it again. So,
Okay.
where do you fit in this process? So, do you come before they talk to James? After? Where do you come in this conversation as far as being their mortgage mentor?
So, Erica, you know what? That is a great question. But you know what? I want to backtrack a little bit because
Yeah.
James dropped some real knowledge on y'all,
Okay, let's go.
a real gem on y'all that I think a lot of people miss in this process when he talked about a duplex.
Okay.
A lot of people overlook that opportunity, especially with using an FHA loan. And that's something that I actually talk about with my clients sometimes, given their situation. Like I have a single father who, a veteran. And he, he has it's just him and his son. And I talked to him about a duplex, quadplex, because VA allows you to buy up to 4 units, and just kind of talk to him about that opportunity, especially since this is your first house. You're not looking for, you're not so much concerned with space and all these different things, and just kind of laid the groundwork for what this can do for him with his first purchase. And he was overjoyed. So he's sold. Nobody else can tell him anything else about a single family. He's definitely going to do a duplex, up to a 4 unit. But I think a lot of people miss that opportunity,
Yeah.
to get, to start an investment property while you own and live in the other side. So, I appreciate you, James, for talking about that, man, because a lot of people miss that opportunity, for your first transaction to have a rental property in combination with, a home that you own on the other side. So, uh, write that down, folks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Write it down, record it, whatever you got to do. But don't forget about that when you go see Erica, to mention, hey, do you think I'll be a good fit for a duplex or a quadplex? So that's something to think about. But to answer your question that you did ask me, so I come in before or after. So, James has even sent me people that he's talked to, and he's identified that they need a little bit of help. They're not ready at the moment.
Hmm.
So he shares my information with them, and I come in to be able to help them so I can get them back to James, get them back to Erica, approved. So, or if you come see me beforehand, before you talk to James, and I ask you those key questions, and I can identify that, hey, there's a really good opportunity that you actually can qualify right now.
Yeah.
Then my job is to get them to James. Say, hey, James, I talked to this person. They have this score. They got this amount of money saved. I think we can, I've kind of vetted them a little bit. I think they're ready to get approved, man. And if that's the case, he's gonna take the ball and get you approved and get you
It's good.
closed. But if there's something that, I wasn't able to determine just from the information that you gave me or whatever information you provided to me, because, lenders are going to pull so much more information, so much more background information. So if he determines that something is preventing us, then all he's going to do is say, hey, Jarek, I appreciate you telling this person about me. Unfortunately, we found this with further investigating, or once they sent me all their documents, maybe their DTI is too high. So he's going to tell me, hey, this, we didn't identify this because, you didn't have access to the background information like we do as a lender. And then he'll just send you back to me. And now I know specifically what to address, uh, in addition to all the other information that I provide to you to help prepare you for home ownership. So your plan is going to be specific to that particular obstacle. Plus, I'm going to give you all the other tidbits and all the other information, and just prepare you with your budget, with savings, so you could be in an even better place. And we've got whatever is hindering us corrected, and then get you back to James. And James is going to be so appreciative because now, they've pretty much had a conversation with a loan officer. They has seen some of the same documents that James is going to provide to you. They understand what a loan worksheet looks like because I'm giving buyers loan worksheets
Yeah.
prior to them even getting to the loan officer. So when they see that from James, they're like, "Oh, wow, I've seen this before," and it helps James because now he doesn't have to explain things 4 or 5 times, because the buyers get it. So I the good thing about what I do is, I can get involved at any stage of the process if there's something preventing the buyer from moving forward. Um, whether you've talked to James first or you talked to me first, and I've identified, so I can come in before or after, to be able to help you to get to that final stage of buying a house.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Derek. We had a question in the chat. Is a down payment and closing costs two separate things? It is. So your down payment for FHA is typically 3.5% of the purchase price. So that is a separate thing. And then you have your earnest money, which we talked about at the beginning, which is you pretty much putting skin in the game and letting the seller know that you want to move forward with the contract. We do go through due diligence. So if we find something in due diligence that we just cannot overcome that hurdle, we cancel that contract and you do get your earnest money back. So that is, something that's a safe haven for you. And then you have your appraisal, you have your inspection, and then your other closing costs, which I never get into those amounts. I always say go to James. James has those final numbers. But yes, those are that's completely separate, and that's the lender fees, the closing attorney fees, all of those different things that come at the closing table. But as I mentioned, I am able to go based off of what type of loan you have. There's a certain percentage that I can ask for in closing costs. So my goal is always to get almost all of your closing costs covered if I can with your seller, but it just really depends on what type of market we have, whether it's a seller's market or a buyer's market. What their margins are. They may have a certain amount of money that they have to make, so they can't give you 20,000 in closing costs because they wouldn't be able to do what they needed to do. So there's a lot of different things to consider as it relates to that. But yes, they are two separate things. The second thing is it true? Second question, is it true if your vehicle is your biggest debt? Lenders look at that debt less than 9 months before consideration. So when I am doing my buyer consultation, I always ask a few questions. I ask them, what's the reason for getting into a new home? What does that look like? What area are they in? I do ask, are they aware of their credit scores with the three bureaus? I asked them concerning, do you have any additional debt? Do you have, vehicle debt? Do you have student loans? Do you have credit cards? So we have those conversations. So your vehicle may not be your biggest debt. Your biggest debt may end up being your student loans. I always tell people are like, yeah, I have $200,000 in student loans, but it's on deferment. Okay, the lender's gonna take 1% of how much you owe in student loan debt. So we need to get you on a payment plan, an income-based repayment plan where you may be paying $50 a month, because that $50 would count towards your debt income ratio versus them having to take 1% off of 200,000. So those are the conversations that we have. Your student loan debt may be the biggest payment that they have to contribute to your debt to income ratio. So we go through all of that just to see what you're making on an annual basis, what your debts are as it relates to student loans, vehicles, credit cards, things of that nature. And then that all contributes to your debt to income ratio, so they can determine what you are pre-approved for. Um, and then James, I'll let you answer this. What qualifies you for the Georgia Dream program? I know you said you have to at least have like a 620 credit score. So what qualifies you for that one?
So 640,
640.
credit, 640 credit score. Georgia Dream is not one of the programs that I usually do. They have their own set of preferred lenders with that. They do come with some unique restrictions. So that's why I typically stay away from it, because I want you to be able to choose something that you don't have to jump through so many hoops. And it usually takes a little longer to close. So some sellers might not want to wait 40 to 45 days to close on their house.
60 days
Gotcha.
sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with James on that. You know, I didn't mind doing down payment assistance, and I always wanted the buyer to get as much money as they could. Georgia Dream was really hot when they were giving about $15,000 to $20,000 in assistance. Outside of that, I really try to stay away from Georgia Dream. And no offense to anybody that does it and does it well, and is able to get buyers assistance that they need, but unfortunately, it is, if I'm being honest, they need to upgrade, fix, revamp that program. And one thing I did learn when I went to the training for Georgia Dream, because all lenders have to go through the training program, I learned that initial program, it's not forgivable, unfortunately. That you that is a second mortgage that's silent. You don't pay it back. But I learned, and they could have changed it, between the last 3 years that I've been out the industry. But what I learned is that sits on your on your title as a silent mortgage for 50 years. So if you sell that house prior to that 50-year period, Georgia Dream could collect on whatever funds that are provided to you for assistance. So that's why, a lot of lenders, if there's something else, they prefer to use that other option, because Georgia Dream is it's in its own box, and sometimes that box can get convoluted, and you know it's a good product if it works, but there's other options that tend to fit better than the Georgia Dream product. But I can definitely understand, if that's what's needed, let's do it. But if there are other options, it's definitely recommended to explore those other options. So I understand why James says he's
Yeah.
doesn't have a lot of experience with it, because it's a beast of its own.
And he has other programs. So there, and all lenders have different programs as it relates to down payment assistance. So it's about being mindful of how it's going to impact you in the long term. So you definitely need a lender that understands the ins and outs of that and is able to get you in the right space. Yeah, please contact me. Even contact me. Let's have a 15-minute conversation so that I can see where you are. Because I always tell people, you may be closer than you think. I have conversations with people and I'm like, you've been waiting for 2 years, and what you're telling me sounds like you can get a pre-approval. So don't be afraid to have the conversation. Even if you feel like, oh, I need to do XYZ, I need to do this, have the conversation, because you may be closer than you think. Like, truly, you may be closer than you think. Me and Jarek was talking the other day. What I did when I got my home, we've been in this home since 2013, is I used my 401k. I took out a loan against my 401k for my down payment and closing costs and all of that stuff, and I paid myself back. I didn't have to have a whole bunch of money saved up. I used that as the avenue. They put that in my account in 2 to 3 days, and I closed. And we've been in this home since 2013. So we need to. I tell people. I just told someone this last night. Stop counting yourself out. We count ourselves out before we even talk to anybody to know where we are. It is never a no. It may be a not yet. It's never a no. If you want to be in a home, you can work towards getting in a home, but we perish by lack of knowledge. We're scared. We're scared of somebody telling us no. You got to know what's out there and what's going on with your credit, what you need to be able to get to the closing table. And a lot of people are closer than you think. So James, break down this because this is terminology that people get confused on. Pre-qualified versus pre-approval. Please break this down for us. Help us to understand what that means.
So pre-qualified, that means that I took your documents, I looked at them, they were great. And based off of what I've seen on an overall high level, I said, hey, you're good to go, right? Pre-approval mean I actually ran what we consider is an automatic system for giving you an approved eligible. I actually collected the documents, looking at the documents, ran through the findings, and gave you a underwriting condition pre-approval. So a lot of times when you get a pre-approval from me, it's going to come with stipulations of things that I might need later on or right then. Pre-quals is just really it still works in the actual putting in the offer phase, but a lot of times the difference between the two is just how much information is on it, and it just really depends on the company and how they set their company up to issue those letters out.
And I would say this, y'all. I'm gonna be honest with y'all. I was working with a client and we went through a lender that was actually going through the underwriting phase to get a pre-approval, and they were like, hey, we're not able to do it at this time because of XYZ. Within a couple of days, they went through another lender that does nothing as it relates to looking at your information, your documents. They just take your word for it and then they sent the pre-approval. And I was like, what? So I had to call my client and I was like, no. Because what's going to happen, you already had someone that looked through your document, said that they could not, do the underwriting for you at that time. And then you have another person that hasn't looked at anything and saying, hey, we're going to get you pre-approved. What's going to happen is we're going to put in a contract on a home, and now they're going to try to go through an underwriting process, and they're going to tell you the same thing that the other people told you, and now we've wasted time and space when I can just put you with Jared, let Jared look at everything so that we can get you in a home that you want and not something that they're saying that you qualify for and they haven't looked at any of your documents. So just be very careful. That's why I have people around me that I know if Jane says, hey, Erica, nope, we're going to have to take about 60 days, fix XYZ, he's telling me that because he's already did the underwriting. Sometimes I'll give James a scenario and he'll take it to the bank to see what the bank says because he can't automatically give that pre-approval, that underwriting. So you gotta, I'm telling y'all, it just because someone says, oh yeah, if you haven't sent any documents to that lender, do not trust that. I'm gonna tell you that right now. Do not trust it. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. It's a no. I'm gonna be looking at you like, what now? You ain't sent out one document, and don't trust it. Do not trust that. Okay, Jarek. So let's talk about credit. When someone comes to you, they're a little bit challenged in credit, maybe some collections, some late payments. What does your process look like to help them improve that?
So the biggest thing is, I'll go ahead and let it be known. I don't do credit repair. Because credit repair, what I found is temporary. It's a temporary solution, and sometimes it can come back to bite you while you're in the transaction. So I don't do credit repair because it doesn't have long-term positive results for the client. So I do credit improvement. My
Yes.
goal is to find ways to be able to improve your scores organically so that it's long term. The biggest thing is we're going to look at, do you have credit? What type of credit do you have currently? If you don't have any credit, one of the goals is going to be to help you to be able to establish some type of credit so that you can have payment history reporting, and not only just establish it, but give you the right way, like a credit card, for example. My clients don't have credit, and so initially I instruct them to get a credit card,
Yeah.
but I'm not just telling you to go get a credit card. And just use it however you want to, and let's hope and pray that your scores come up. No, we're being very strategic about how we're going to use this credit card so we can get the maximum result from this credit card without paying any interest, without paying many fees, so that we can, because my goal is to increase your scores as quickly as possible.
Yes.
So if I can give you the right strategy with getting that credit card and tell you the right balance to keep on that credit card and the right techniques to utilize with that credit card, then that'll help us to reach our goal a lot quicker. Also with some of the derogatory accounts like charge-offs or collections. Um, I'll go ahead and just kind of give one of my tips and strategies is, collections are always one of the last things that we address. Because what I found is collection accounts, once they've posted to your credit, they're really hard to rectify. The only way to truly get a score increase from collections is to have them deleted. Because just paying them, what I found during my time as a loan officer is just there's no net positive results from paying a collection because the damage was done when it got reported initially as a collection. And the
Mm-hmm.
only way to completely reverse that damage is to get it completely removed. I mean, there's maybe a handful of collections that can increase the scores, but most of them don't unless you can get them deleted. And if it's a medical collection, we may not even address that because lenders don't even weigh medical collections into the process. They don't look at the balances. They don't look at how much you own medical collections. So those are definitely some of the last things we addressed. We will address because lenders don't look at those. So it really just depends on your overall credit and looking at that, analyzing that to figure out the best course of action. And what I always try to do is I always try to find the quickest way to increase your scores with the least amount of money, because I know
Yeah.
money is important. And if we do have to pay some things off or pay some things down, I'm not just telling you, hey, pay all these off, pay all these down. We're trying to find out within your budget how much more can we put towards these accounts to be able to pay them off, pay them
Yeah.
down? And so we're utilizing a debt payoff strategy, a snowball effect to be able to, use as much money as we can to pay the first one off, then take that and second pay the second one off. So so we utilize those things so that way you feel like you have some type of plan in place to even address those credit items that you're trying to address to help improve your scores.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, that is big. Jared, and I love that you, so I think the question did say improvement. So yeah, I want you guys to know he's not a credit specialist, all of this stuff where people be saying, oh, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna send these letters off, I'm gonna do this. He's gonna look at your full credit profile and he's going to say, hey, in order for us to get, your credit up to a certain amount, these are the things that we need to work on. And he has a process to, like he mentioned, on, okay, we pay these things off, then we know it's going to automatically increase your credit score. So the things that he's telling you is going to organically increase your credit score for you to be able to get to where you need to be. So as relates to credit score, James, we talked about it a little bit in down payment assistance. It typically requires like a 640. But can we talk about what credit score does someone need to get pre-approved, and what's the lowest score you personally helped someone get into a home? And I especially want to talk about VA because VA doesn't put as much emphasis on credit as others. So let's talk about that.
Um, when I first started many years ago, I I took on VA deals, and the so VA they forgive some things, and some things they're sticklers about, right?
Okay.
VAs are sticklers about collections. They're more of
Okay.
a stickler about collections than other ones, right? However, VA is not a stickler for debt to income ratio. So they let you hold as much debt as you want to. Now, per the rules, a 580 credit score can't get you an FHA loan, right?
Okay.
That's what we heard. What they don't tell you is you're probably going to have to put 5 to 10% down
Mm,
because getting approved works off a merit system. You must have compensating factors. You might need 6 months of reserve with that 580 credit score, along
mm-hmm.
with that 10% down. So typically, if you got a 580 credit score and you got 10% down and 6 months of reserve, you probably should fix your credit score if you're going to put that much money down. So typically, people that I work with, they usually come in at about a 620. It's a sweet spot. You can get the minimum out, but when you go below that, you're rolling the dice on what you're going to have to put down. You're
Okay.
rolling the dice on what your interest rate is. So, do we help people with that? Yes. If you got a lot of money and you want to spend it, yes, we'll absolutely get you in the house. Nobody's turning down anybody with a lot of money. Nobody.
Okay. Okay.
But
Gotcha. Gotcha.
but on the other side, you want to make sure that you're in the sixes minimum because everybody say, "Oh, I'll take this person, I'll take that person." That's typically that file that took about 3 months to close.
Okay.
So that's the other part about it. So we want to make sure that yes, a lot of lenders can get those files done, but it's going to be a lot of patience and a lot of money.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Yep.
Jarek, and we're getting ready to run out of time. So I have one for you, Jarek. How long does it realistically take from going from not ready to mortgage ready? Like what's the span and the time that you've been doing this? Give us a little information, insight into that.
So I would say if you're right on the cusp of that 620, and you're looking at anywhere between that 550 to 600. So let's be realistic. It's going to depend on some of the factors that we're going to discuss. If you're right on the cusp of what you need, and we talk about how much money do you have saved right now, how much money do you have access to right now, if you've saved and you just maybe just not credit savvy and you didn't quite understand how it worked, it's not going to take you that long because you have them. If I tell you, hey, you need to pay this balance down, you owe 1,000, and I tell you need to pay it down to $100, and you have money saved in the bank, it's not going to take you long to be able to do that. So for somebody who, if you have money saved and you're right on the cusp of the score that you need, it could be anywhere from 45 days to 3 months that you're looking at, because all we're waiting on really is those balances that you've paid off to update, and for the credit scores to go through at least a cycle, which takes anywhere from 30 to 45 days. We're just waiting for that cycle to happen, and once those scores update, we can turn around that 560, 570 to a 620 fairly quickly. If we just need to pay some balances down. But if we're below that 560, if we're 530, 520, 500, and we don't have any money saved, then yeah, it's going to take us a little longer. It's going to take anywhere from, I would say, 6 months to maybe even as long as 12 months, because now not only do we have to increase the credit scores, but now through my program, we have to also figure out a strategy to be able to save the money that we need for the initial money that's needed, and even a way to even pay some of these balances down within your budget. So, I would say on average, if you're really close, it can be anywhere from 45 days to 3 months. If we have credit, if we have savings that we have to work on, I would say anywhere from 6 to 12 months
Yeah.
to be able to get you turned around, and get you to the point where, because one of the things I pride myself is I don't want to get you turned around just so I can get you to James. I want to get you turned around so that when you go to James, you are confident that
Yeah.
James can get you close. Not
Yeah.
just because of what
Absolutely.
James can do, but because of what you've been through, what
Yep.
I've informed you of, what I've taught you, what you understand about the process, what you understand about your finances, what you understand about your budget. You're confident that, hey, you know what? I can get close. If something comes up, I got money saved. I got money put aside. I can be able to handle this so that I can get close, so that I can get James whatever he's asking for within 24 hours. James is not waiting on me to send him docs.
Mm-hmm.
James is not having to explain stuff to me, 5 times, 6 times. James is like, man, I appreciate, these buyers from your mortgage mentor, because, they understand what's at stake. They understand, the part that they play, and they understand how important it is to to just participate with the expectation that you're about to close on your first house. So definitely, it really just depends on your financial situation, in its totality, and how quickly we can get you turned around. But the biggest thing I would take away is, regardless of what your credit score is, if you can start saving even at least $50, that's always a
That's good.
savings is always the best place to start. Just something, $20 a week, just to get you in the habit of saving.
That's good.
Because the more money you have, the easier it is to get you closed. Like James
Yeah.
said, if you got $100,000 and you got a 580, there's a lot of lenders that can close your loan, and get you closed. You know what
James
I
like,
mean?
oh
So
yeah. Another thing too, and I'll after this we can all just give a one nugget of wisdom before we close out. But when it comes to like the closing costs and all of that stuff too, the lenders do allow you to get, if say for instance your mom wants to give you $5,000 towards your home, you can do that. It's a gift, they just have to account for it, whether it's a letter, whether it's in the bank and they have to get, that bank statement, whatever that is. So there's always opportunities for you to get where you need to be. So my negative wisdom is set up a 15-20 minute conversation with me. Stop being afraid. Let's have the conversation so that I can evaluate where you are, determine whether or not I can put you with James, because I'm gonna call James as soon as I get off the phone and be like, James, I think this person is ready. And I'm gonna give him the scenario and he's gonna be like, yeah, yeah, go ahead and tell him to do it. If I feel like we have a little bit more work, then my call gonna be straight up to Jared. Jared gonna get an email detailed on what's going on. I'm gonna put you guys in a group text message. So there's opportunities no matter what. Stop being afraid of having the conversation. That's what I want you guys to get from me today. set up a call with me. Even if you are in another state, my goal is going to be to have a conversation with you, put you in contact with the lender that's, approved for that state, so that I can get you that pre-approval, and then I'm going to do a soft handoff to someone that's going to be able to take care of you. So it does not matter where you are. Please call me and have a conversation so we can talk about this. Enough is enough of us wanting for years and years and years to get in the home, and we're scared that somebody gonna tell us no. We're counting ourselves out before we even get in the game, and that's crazy. That's crazy. Be the New York Knicks. They up. Be the New York Knicks. All right. All right. I'm gonna pass it over to James. James, what's your nugget of wisdom as we're concluding?
Um, Two things. First thing, a lot of people say, "Hey, I'm paying $2,000 on rent. You want me to pay $2,500 on your mortgage, right?" A lot of people have that question. This is what they say. "Hey, I'm paying this. Why would I want to pay more?" Two reasons. When you start looking at your home as an investment to yourself and not somewhere to stay, you're going to actually be paying yourself. Now, I own several rental properties. Every year, my rental properties go up. So, in a 5 year span, you could be at more than that mortgage, right?
Mm,
Because that mortgage is going to be at that 2,500, but in a 5 year span, that rent, if you stayed in that same house, it's still going to continue. Your landlord is not going to be like, "We're going to keep you at this $2,000 for the next 5 years." No, it's not. It's not going to happen. That's not reality. So if you're worried about, "Hey, why is my mortgage going to be a little bit more now?" Think about, "Hey, I'm paying myself to one day pretty much take money from my bank, which is my
yeah.
house." So a lot of
Yep.
people are wondering, like, what's the biggest thing about being a first-time home buyer? One of the biggest things about being a first-time home buyer, you're actually investing into yourself and becoming your own bank, right?
Yeah.
Real estate rolls in a 5 year sense. So that means the house that you bought it this year, that means in year five, you're going to be able to pull 20 to 30 grand out of it. And all you did was pay a bill and live in it, right? So you got to start thinking about what is going to be your biggest investment. There's a reason why it's called your biggest investment in your life, because you're going to be able to receive some of your biggest benefits in your life from it if you decide to sell it or refinance. Second
That's
thing
that.
is newlyweds, single parents, small families, somebody who doesn't have kids. I really emphasize going the multifamily route.
Mm-hmm.
Really emphasize it, because this is the beauty of this. Once the 12 months has passed, they give you an option to rent out the side that you're currently living in. So that
Mm,
means you can actually turn this into a full-fledged investment property that you got in with down payment assistance,
And do it again.
and do it
yeah.
again. So
Yeah. That's
there,
good.
that's where I'm at.
Yeah. And I'll say too, with what James said, I opened up my home care business by using the home equity line of credit. I had equity in my home and I was able to use it and start a whole business. So there are so many different reasons why you need to get into a home versus renting and just giving the landlord your money that you're never going to get back. You're not going to be able to utilize anything. And if any little thing happen, they're going to kick you out. So it's a huge investment. So all right, Jared, close us out. What's your nugget of wisdom?
So hopefully I won't talk too long because I can get deep in these nuggets, but Eric, I kind of gonna piggyback off of what you said when you said just take a chance. I take a chance on yourself. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Believe in yourself. Believe that you can accomplish this, and take the opportunity that's available in front of you. You have a full team that can help ensure you to get to the closing table. And
Yeah.
if you're not ready now, guess what? We have a solution, which is why
Exactly.
I'm doing what I'm doing. If you take a chance and you're ready now, you have James and Erica that can help you find a house and help you
Yep.
to get closed on the house. But if you stand in the corner and you talk yourself out of what's for you, then guess what? You will never be able to say that you accomplished your goal because you didn't take a chance. You got to
Yep.
take a chance. You
Yep.
got to take a chance. You got to talk to somebody. You got to put yourself out there. You got to put the information out there, and you got to try. Because at worst, you hear, "Hey, you're not ready now." But guess what? Here's a plan and somebody to help you work this plan to be able to get you to the point where you can buy the duplex. And once you do it, I promise you, the one thing that brought me so much joy as a loan officer is seeing the individual that was the first buyer in their entire family that bought a house that didn't think they can do it, that did
Mm,
not think they can do it, didn't think they
love
were ready, and utilize one of my credit plans. She came back to me 12 months later and said, "Jarek, I followed everything you told me to do. I'm ready to buy." And we helped her get closed. And not only did that change the dynamic within her family, and even changed her mindset. She began to believe that, you know what, I can do this now. I can start my business now. I can do these different things because she took a chance, believed in herself, kept pushing regardless of what came up, and she made it happen. And I promise you, it will change you. It will change your children's mindset, and it'll allow you to really be able to build something for yourself. And I think that's what we miss a lot of times, is that home ownership is a foundation for building wealth in this world,
yeah.
in the economy that we live in. If you have a house, you are well above so many other people when you have a home. So take advantage of what's out there. There's no other asset that you can buy that the bank, the mortgage company will give you more than 90% of that asset. You know what I mean? So you can't get that in the stock market. You can't get that with Bitcoin. No other asset a bank is going to give you more than 90% of the value of that asset, loan you the money to be able to buy, and you get to take advantage of the appreciation of that asset. So utilize what's out there. Don't be afraid. Take a chance on yourself. Believe in yourself. Trust in the people that are here, available to be able to help you. That have the expertise, have the knowledge. Trust us. We got you. Believe in us. Use us. Utilize the knowledge that we have, and let's make it happen.
Absolutely. Well, thank you both for being on my team, because I couldn't do this without both of you guys. And thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with everyone on this live. For those that are still on and for those that will watch the replay, I did put two links in there, so you can still register for this event where you will be able to get the free resources tomorrow. And then I also put the link to my free ebook. So a lot of people have downloaded the ebook and they said that it's very helpful. So again, y'all, let's have the conversation. Let's have the conversation. I'm going one or two ways. I'm sending you to James or I'm sending you to Jarek. But either way, you're going to be in good hands. And once we get that pre-approval, I'm going to go to bat for you and make sure that you get in the home of your dreams. So don't count yourself out. Let's go. Even if you feel like you're not ready right now, let's have a conversation. Let me be the judge of that. Let me look and see what's going on. Because sometimes we're talking about stuff that doesn't have anything to do with you getting that pre-approval. So let's have a conversation. Let's see where you are, and then I'll point you in the right direction. So I appreciate you guys for joining us. More to come. Jarek said that. So me and James, this is our second one. This is Jarek's first time. He said he wants to continue to hang with us.
Oh
So
yeah.
doing this every other month, and we'll come up with other topics based off of what you guys want. We want to make sure you're successful in this thing. Yes, these are careers for us, but more importantly, it's a ministry too, because we want to make sure that we give you what you need. We're not throwing you in something that is not beneficial for you, and knowledge is power. So, and
Oh
you got
yeah.
the dream team. So, come on, let's have a conversation about it. So, thank you again to my guests. I really appreciate you guys. Thank you for joining. And we'll talk with you soon. If you have any questions, need anything, y'all know how to get in contact with me. It's all over my social media. Call me, text me, DM me, whatever it is. I'm here for you, and I'll put you in the right hands. So thank you. Have a great evening, and we'll talk with you soon. Bye.